Sure, the New York Jets are 0-7, but this is a stay-on-track game for the Cincinnati Bengals if they want to keep their season alive.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jake Liscow, he's James Rapien, and together we are Locked On Bengals, covering your Cincinnati Bengals here since 2016, the best one-stop shop anywhere online for all things Bengals, from the latest news to film analysis to everything going on with your favorite team. We've got you covered here on Locked On Bengals. Everydayers know that already, and we appreciate you if you make Locked On Bengals your first listen. Today we dive into the 0-7 New York Jets coming to Paycor Stadium to pay the Bengals a visit, why this represents a game that, as many of the games in this part of the schedule will be, is crucial to the Bengals' hopes of keeping their season on track for a hypothetical return for Joe Burrow in December. And there's one troubling trend, James, that I want to talk about as we get started in this one. This episode brought to you by Mazda, who sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. And James, the trend that is scary was a trend that, much like last week, when you looked at the AFC Thursday night trends, where the home team in the AFC North has such an advantage on Thursday night football, or just the recent primetime trend in the NFL where straight up underdogs were winning. They'd won 7 out of the last 8 primetime games straight up as underdogs. The Bengals, on games coming off of Thursday night football, haven't won in a very long time. Certainly haven't won in the Zach Taylor era, their best result being a tie against the New York Jets coming off Thursday night football. And, well, the Bengals have 2 opportunities this year to right that wrong. And the first and biggest opportunity this week against a team that has been absolutely hapless and is in quarterback limbo in the New York Jets.
Gotta have it. It's the gotta have it game. You want to say stay on track. It's get to 2-0 in realistic games with Joe Flacco. I get it. They lost to that Packers team, and it was a tough situation. I don't think anybody was really expecting them to win that game. But last week was keeping your season alive, and what that did was earn you the chance to beat a winless team and get back to 500. And so this is one of those games where it's weird. It's weird because the Bengals are favored, and yet we've covered this team, and it's not like it's been all positive. It's not going to be all positives in this show even. And yet, with all the injuries, or the key injury at least with Joe Burrow, and everything that's gone on through 8 weeks, they can get to 4-4, and they can be right there where they kind of fresh slate in an open AFC, give themselves an opportunity here over the final couple of months of 2025 to be in the thick of it. And that didn't seem realistic a couple of weeks ago, pre-Joe Flacco trade, as we record this 16 days ago. I mean, he's been a Bengal for 16 days, and it feels like it's done so much inside the locker room, which is a big one. Like I've seen plenty of discourse about the locker room, and I don't think Zach had lost it, but I definitely think it was going in that direction where things were going bad in a hurry. Belief was fading fast, and now it's there, and now it's back. And to get it all the way back, I think you obviously have to handle business at home against the Jets, all of the uncertainty. Aaron Glenn, a punchline for his comments of, we don't want to tell the Bengals who our starter is and give them a competitive advantage. Like he got roasted on social media for saying that. And I think we all know it's probably going to be Tyrod Taylor.
Assuming he's healthy. He's on the injury report.
Is. Old guy, knee, he's fine.
He was limited, and injuries are certainly a storyline in this game as the lead up to the game. Trey Hendrickson's return is a topic of conversation on the Bengals side of things. On the Jets side of things, I have all eyes on Sauce Gardner and the potential homecoming for Sauce Gardner playing back in Cincinnati for the first time in a while. And the concussion protocol for him, he didn't practice on Wednesday. And you can kind of tell where guys are in the concussion protocol. You usually don't see them practice the Wednesday after a Sunday concussion. If you see any sort of participation from Sauce on Friday, there's a chance that he could get back for this one, but that's just one that you're going to have to keep an eye on. And there's a number of those injuries on the Jet side of things that are going to bear watching this week. But the reason I call it a stay on track game, James, is because the Bengals haven't had those this season. The
Sure.
Bengals haven't been on track at any point this season. And it's a stretch to say that they are now, but beating the Pittsburgh Steelers with an offensive showing like the one they had is the closest they have been in 2025. Week 1, they sneak out a win. Week 2, they sneak out a win. They lose Joe Burrow. At no point in either of those wins did we think that they were on track from a detailed perspective. From a record perspective, from an outcome perspective, sure, 2-0 is where you want to be. And it's part of why they're still in this conversation at this point after having the 0-4 stretch, the 4-game losing streak. But for the first time this season, it's okay, can they sustain something on offense? They've had 6 pretty good quarters on offense. They didn't score in the first quarter last week, but they were able to get a couple first downs, which is hilarious to say out loud, but is progress for them in the first half, in the first quarter. So we've seen them find the success in the quick game. They found some success in the run game last week. Jamar Chase is doing Jamar Chase things. Joe Flacco is loving throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. He's talked about it on the Fitz and Wit podcast with you guys when he's been on the podium. Joe Flacco, so shockingly entertaining guy to listen to on interviews. He's a pretty good interview, I would say. But can he keep that going? Can Flacco build on this success? Can Zach Taylor and this offensive staff do as they've done in the past and continue to find answers? And then on the other side of things, it's really stay on track for the offense and like find a foothold for the defense against an offense that Garrett Wilson, again, one of those key injuries for the Jets on the offensive side of the ball. Who's beating you on this Jets offense? It's like Breece Hall and some tight ends and
Yep.
like a collection of receivers that would be on the bench for the Bengals, I think. So get on track for the defense, stay on track for the offense, and an opportunity to build some momentum for the first time this season, build some of that faith, some of that belief that has started going in the right direction, James.
September 14th was the last time they scored a first quarter touchdown. Jamar to Joe. So that streak still continues.
Joe to Jamar.
Or Joe to Jamar. Yeah. Joe. Oh, maybe I'm for Jamar to Joe on Sunday, baby.
Did you see someone tagged us in an old clip of Joe Flacco catching a deep ball back like when he was a baby by NFL standards?
Yes. No, I did. I agree with you on Flacco being he's so easy to root for, and part of why winning this game on Sunday is so important is if the Bengals stay relevant and they stay in it and they win enough games to do those things. We're talking about one of the best stories in the league. Like, because he's going to just be so relatable. The clip went viral. Everybody has seen it by now. If we want to play it, we can. I had to have it ready. But the sitting in a restaurant by himself is super relatable. And it wouldn't have been relatable for me like 10 years ago. But now I'm like, oh, yeah. And we haven't talked to Jamar on Thursday. I'm curious to ask him if he understands that yet. He is a dad, but I don't know if Jamar does. And it's just interesting to see how Joe has quickly integrated himself into this locker room just by being himself and being the 40-year-old dad of 4 and husband and all of the things that he's been, and obviously a really good quarterback as well.
Yeah, he has very quickly become a very easy to root for player, I think, for this team, especially for people that are like in it and like watching all the Joe Flacco media appearances out there from the post game on Thursday Night Football after the win, where I think he started earning more hearts of fans that aren't watching the press conferences, for example, and like the Fitz and Wit podcast appearance from Flacco, also very entertaining, talking to the other, guys that are roughly his age that have retired in Andrew Whitworth and Ryan Fitzpatrick. But there's another lineup change coming in front of Joe Flacco as we talk about the overall, the broad strokes, stay on track on offense, Joe Flacco continue to play at a high level, because we saw an excellent game from him against the Steelers. It's going to be different. He's going to be challenged in different ways as teams get tape on how the Bengals are approaching things on offense with Flacco. But another change coming as the Bengals are shifting gears at guard. Talk some more about some of those injuries, Trey Hendrickson's return, some of the matchups that will matter in this game coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book for a reason. And right now they have an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. You pick a bet, you put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And that can be, well, on Sunday. Bengals, Jets, obviously the Bengals favored in that one. Maybe you're thinking the Bengals are going to make a run here. Let's look at these AFC North odds. FanDuel has it all from in-game live betting, prop bets to future bets. So get started today. Again, we're $5. Throw that first $5 bet out there. You win that bet and boom, $300 in bonus bets. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
Locked On Bengals is also sponsored today by Rippling. If you're a business owner, the truth is that SaaS promised to make your work easier, but the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SaaS, software as a disservice. And that's why you need Rippling. Rippling is a unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. You can remove your bottlenecks and unite your employees, teams, and departments in one system. From onboarding to payroll to IT access, it can run automatically and perfectly in sync. Whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill in the gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. Right now, you can get 6 months free, which is crazy. When you go to rippling.com/locked on NFL, that's potentially 6 months free. You can learn more at rippling.com/locked on NFL. That's rippling.com/locked on NFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, Jake, before we dive into the offensive line and other storylines going into this game, a big one's what's going to happen at halftime. And Zach Taylor spilled the beans on Wednesday when he mentioned that Dave Lapham's name already up there, and obviously they're gonna block it out. But to have two more than well-deserving guys going into the Ring of Honor on Sunday, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Dave Lapham, Lamar Parrish, huge congrats to those guys.
Leap
both
and Lamar.
well-deserving. Leap and Lamar Parrish. Obviously, both of these guys destined for the Ring of Honor. Part of that group, and I think is true every time we talk about this, all of those potential candidates that were on the initial voting list seemed like they were destined for the Ring of Honor. We're certainly still in that territory. Maybe if there are some fringe cases that you could argue on that list, but not for these guys. And a big congrats to them. And while Dave Lapham won't be suiting up for the Bengals on the field,
maybe he should. Maybe Lamar should.
Yeah, maybe it would help. They could use help with both of those positions a little bit, but we'll still have Lap suited up in some capacity as he continues his career in and around the Bengals. And well, the Bengals are making a change at the position that Dave Lapham played at guard. And it sounds like the youth movement is back on. The Bengals relying on rookies all over the field this season to play key roles. And it sounds like Dylan Fairchild will return to the lineup this week.
That's the expectation for sure, is that Dylan Fairchild's back in. And I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, Jake, Dalton Reisner is certainly, for my money, one of their two best guards, certainly. And so to not have him out there seems questionable at best. Now, if you flip it, you could say, well, they've been committed to Dylan Fairchild since they drafted him in April. They've been committed to him being the starter basically from the jump. He didn't do anything to lose the job. Dalton Reisner filled in very well. My question is, if Fairchild struggles a bit, how long is that leash? Is it a half? I mean, Quinnen Williams is a dude, a real dude that's going to cause some problems. And so How do they handle that one? Two, if they don't handle it well and Dylan Fairchild's losing, does Reisner come out to start the second half? I wonder. I don't know how long that leash is.
And if they were going to return Dylan Fairchild to the lineup, this is something that I think we even talked about last week. To me, that makes plenty of sense. But to me, also on the other side, where Zach Taylor obviously is pleased enough with the progress of his rookie guards, Jalen Rivers on tape has had some struggles. He's also done some things well, but Dalton Risner just had a good run blocking game of all things against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he got beat a couple times in protection. Cam Hayward will still do that to you. But Rivers on the other side, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any consideration given to switching Dalton Risner over to the right side. It doesn't seem like there's been any consideration really given to returning Lucas Patrick to the starting lineup, where I wonder what that line is. You're talking about the leash for Fairchild. If it's just that they wanted to give him an extra week to get healthy, he was active last week, but if they wanted to give him an extra week to get healthier before he returned to the starting lineup, what's the leash for Jalen Rivers, who by all accounts has been healthy and maybe eventually develops? These are valuable reps for these guys as far as development goes. But right now, are you putting your best five on the field when you keep those rookies out there? The Bengals seem to think so. They seem to think that the balance of development and getting their best offensive line on the field is working with those guys. But the chemistry that seemed to emerge with Dalton Risner and Ted Karras and Orlando Brown last week, like I said, especially in the run game, it does make this change feel questionable. I'm not going to say that it's not understandable at all. A lot of the initial reaction is like, this is a crazy decision. That's what we got from a lot of our listeners, James, is like, what are they doing? What are they thinking? But like you said, it's not like Fairchild went out there and lost the job. He could certainly stand to be better. He's a rookie guard from the third rounds, of course, but I'm more interested in the right guard spot with this change. Like, put Dylan Fairchild in, sure. That kind of makes sense to me, but what's the leash then for Jalen Rivers?
Yeah, and I think that's the other element here is it's reasonable to think Dylan Fairchild might be one of their five best linemen. Fine with that. But it's unreasonable to say that Dalton Risner isn't one of their five best linemen. Like, I think that's really tough to paint that path and be realistic about it. And I tried to be pretty clear with Zach about the line of questioning before Wednesday's practice. And since then, obviously, we've seen Fairchild line up with the ones and all of those things. But it's like, are you trying to win now? Like, obviously, you're trying to win Sunday. I don't know how Risner on the bench is the best path to do it. Like, it's hard for me to see that, put it that way.
Yeah. And around them, the offense still has to execute. And like you said, you got to deal with Quinnen Williams on the other side. You have to deal with Jameen Sherwood, who is really good in the run game and the return of Quincy Williams. The last time we saw Quincy Williams play against the Cincinnati Bengals, he really made a name for himself in a lot of ways, as he's designated for return from IR for the Jets and was a full go on Wednesday. So kind of expecting to see him back for the Jets this week. But the big one in terms of the matchups in this game is going to be, is Sauce Gardner available to the Jets? If he's not available to the Jets, this thing really tilts in the favor of the Bengals on the outside. And it should always tilt in the direction of the Bengals on the outside with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. But of all the corners in the NFL to deal with those guys, Sauce Gardner is one where you can think, okay, we're going to have to deal with Sauce Gardner. Mm-hmm. Much like Patrick Surtain a few weeks ago with the Denver Broncos. That's the case for Sauce. He's maybe, if you look at his PFF grade, you're not super impressed, but he was starting to play really well. Has put together a few really nice weeks for the Jets in coverage, and without him, the Bengals receivers were able to handle Brandon Stevens the last time the Bengals faced Brandon Stevens at corner, and he's a fine corner. Jarvis Bradley in the slot for the Jets. Like, those matchups go so strongly in the Bengals' favor that you could imagine things going like they did against the Steelers for the Bengals on offense. Like, yeah, there are going to be pass protection issues at times, but Joe Flacco should be able to figure out where the ball needs to go quickly, and those wide receivers should be able to wing quickly enough that the offense should be able to remain on track, especially if Sauce is missing.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And ultimately, if Sunday they're able to open up running lanes and they're able to get the ball to their playmakers, and it's Dylan Fairchild and it's Jalen Rivers, well, then fine. But the last thing you want is Quinnen Williams to get in there and make a few disruptive plays early and throw things off and put the Bengals in a bad spot where maybe they go another game without scoring a touchdown in the first quarter. Plenty to get to. We got to talk about this defense and how they're maybe going to turn it around. Is Trey going to play? Plenty of questions surrounding Al Golden's crew. We'll get to that coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is T. Higgins with his slide. And if you look at all these different angles, Zach Taylor told them to slide. Obviously, you got Jamar after the game saying he would have slid. T. Higgins, super aware, makes that move to not score the touchdown, slide, and give Evan McPherson a chance to win the game, put the game away. The Bengals, it was a huge win. It was a must-win last week, and T. Higgins doing that down 31-30, chance to salt the game away and kick the game-winning field goal. Huge for T to move the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda. Move and be moved.
One last thing on the offense, James, before we flip over and talk about the defense. Trey Hendrickson, who's going to make offense happen for the New York Jets, which is a big question that I have, and hopefully I'm not answering on Sunday after the game, is the run game for the Bengals. When they've been able to get the run game going this year, it has unlocked their offense, even if it's just going a little bit. And Joe Flacco showing that understanding of when to go to the passing part of the run pass options that they're reading before the snap, or the package plays, depending on what you want to call it. But if they can run the ball again this week, Steelers struggled to tackle mightily last week, and the Jets have their own tackling issues. One of the teams, at least according to PFF, that's down in the conversation with the Bengals in the tackling world. But the return of, like I said, Quincy Williams at linebacker could help in that regard. But a team that is better defending the run than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Bengals were able to chunk some runs off last week, really helped the offense get going. Very curious to see how the run game continues to find those incremental improvements as the Bengals continue to tinker with things on offense. But on the defensive side of the ball, James, another huge injury question for the Jets in this one. Sauce Gardner on defense is roughly equivalent to the presence of Garrett Wilson on offense for the Jets, and he's still dealing with a hyperextended knee, did not practice on Wednesday either. So obviously watching his status, it doesn't sound necessarily entirely likely that he's going to play. But if it's not Garrett Williams, then the receivers for Tyrod Taylor are Alan Lazard, Josh Reynolds, and Arian Smith. And they're going to play a lot of two tight end sets with Mason Taylor and Jeremy Ruckert, who's going to play a lot in line for them. Taylor's going to be aligned a little bit more versatilely. And then obviously there's Breece Hall. And then apparently Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, even though he's also dealing with an injury and was limited on Wednesday. Without Garrett Wilson, you look at this Jets offense and you're kind of like, man, where does it come from? Offensive line's not great. Armand Membo's had a really impressive rookie season on the right side at tackle for the Jets, but there are guys that you can beat across this offensive line. The skill guys aren't terrifying. And I say this now, and I'm wondering, man, which of these guys is going to make me eat my words in a couple of days, because this Bengals defense hasn't been able to stop anyone all year.
And that's it, is you have to, like, if you're ever going to stop anyone ever, this is the type of game. Like, this needs to be, the Bengals have been the get right team for a lot of teams. This needs to be the get right game for the Bengals defense. And you got Shamar Stewart saying it was a subpar performance last week. Fine. Coming off the ankle. Well, I expect Trey Hendrickson to be on the field. Shamar Stewart's going to play. First time they'll be together since week 2, and for a full game, hopefully, since week 1. Let's see something there. Let's see how that works. Now, the Bengals, they activated Cedric Johnson, opened up that window with Cam Sample nicked up here. Will he be ready to go? I know there are veterans in the building this offseason that said, man, Cedric Johnson's got something to him as a pass rusher. We'll see. You know, coming off of an injury, expectations shouldn't be high, and they aren't high, but maybe he can give you something because you haven't gotten a lot. And so if there was ever a game where this defense was going to get some pressure, contain a team, and hold up its end of the bargain and not just force a few turnovers and be opportunistic, this would appear to be the game. And it's been the theme the past couple of weeks. You can't let Breece Hall beat you, because that's where it's going to start. They're going to want to get Breece Hall the ball because he's their best playmaker, especially with Garrett Wilson out. And so you got to make sure that Hall doesn't beat you. And I'm assuming Wilson's out. I'm not positive on that, but I think it's trending in that direction.
Yeah, and that makes Tyrod Taylor's life so much easier if they are able to run the ball. And the Bengals have been susceptible in the run game this year. Now, if they can sell out to stop the run, they might be able to stop the run and say, okay, Tyrod Taylor and Alan Lazard and Josh Reynolds, you guys beat us. Mason Taylor, you guys beat us. And maybe they do. But if you can,
Mason can play.
I'm not trying to say they're nobody, right? But it's like, if you're picking one,
sure,
it's let's make Tyrod Taylor prove that he can beat us with these weapons and with the potential pass protection issues that the Jets have had. Tyrod Taylor on his dropbacks has been pressured on 47% of his dropbacks, according to PFF this year, on 91 dropbacks. And the Bengals haven't been able to get after the passer this year, but if it is Trey and that's the way it's trending, Trey should be able to beat up on Fashanu on the left side. Maybe this is a BJ Hill game. The interior for the Jets, suspect. Maybe this is a Chris Jenkins opportunity to show that he's taken some steps as a pass rusher, which we haven't really seen this year, and I wouldn't necessarily expect. But these are the kinds of games against offenses that are lacking on the weapon department and lacking on the offensive line, where you should be able to win in multiple ways on defense. Where if this defense isn't going to be the worst defense in the NFL that it has been so far, and like we've talked about, they've played some good offenses this year, this is the kind of game where, yeah, you have to get right a little bit. You can't be the reason that the Bengals are fighting for their lives in the fourth quarter against a team that literally is 0-7 and has looked as bad as the worst moments for the Bengals this year. That they're making quarterback changes and all these things, but still has a feeling in many ways of a trap game, especially when you consider the Bengals' history coming off Thursday night games recently. Like, this is a trend that needs to change for this team this week.
And what you do is you jump on them. You score you score twice on your first two possessions, a touchdown, field goal, 2 touchdowns. You get up early, you put doubt in their mind, and you do that. Like that's the path. And Zach always talks about playing with the lead, and it's true to a degree. Some of it is, hey man, find a way to come back if you don't have a lead. But in this scenario against this team, you jump out to a lead, you get the crowd involved. They're thinking about how they're falling to 0-8. Like, you just put all of the doubt, all of the nonsense, you put it in them early. And if you do that, then I think you're going to be on a good path to getting to 4-4. And this is, however you want to phrase it, a game that if the Bengals are a playoff team, they should win. Or if they're going to compete for the playoffs, they should win. And a loss it would take any equity that they built last week or that they added, and any credibility they added last week would be gone, I would say, if they lose to the Jets. So you got to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the Bengals being buyers earlier this week. And
woo, baby. Yep.
The only way you get there, and I know there are a lot of fans out there that are like, the Bengals don't make trades. They've done it twice in the last 2 years, but I hear you. The Bengals don't really make a whole lot of trades, and that's true. And the NFL in general doesn't do a whole lot of in-season trading. Also true. And there's generally a lot of hype built up around the trade deadline in the NFL, and then like two trades might happen. Interestingly, by the way, if you read Jeremy Fowler's piece over at ESPN with the top valued and most likely players to get traded, Logan Wilson actually had the highest trade probability in that entire list that Fowler put together at 60%. So maybe the Bengals are more actively listening to offers on Logan Wilson or shopping Logan Wilson, who, by the way, has a chance to be on the field a lot this week, because I do expect the Jets to be in 12 personnel a lot. And if the Bengals choose to match that with their base personnel, that's probably going to be a fair amount of playing time for Logan Wilson this week. So we'll see what the direction is there, as the Bengals have embraced that youth movement like they're doing on the offensive line at linebacker as well. And that's led to some head scratching questions like, what are we actually doing here with Logan Wilson, not putting him on the field? And that will be tested this week, I think, because the Jets, like the Steelers, heavily relying on putting a lot of tight ends on the field. So could see some Logan Wilson this week. But the reason we went down this tangent is because I talked about the Bengals are going to be buyers, and we're going to talk about them as being in the mix, and they should be making moves to continue to try to improve their team and continue to try to stay afloat for this return for Joe Burrow that everyone seems to be talking about this week. Now that they finally won a game, all the national insiders talking about Joe Burrow's going to come back in December. That's the tone. If that's going to be relevant and those games are going to be relevant for Joe Burrow, absolutely got to get this one and take care of business, continue to build some momentum against the Jets.
Yep. That's it. If you're one of those teams, you handle business this week, you get to 4-4, and then you have a fun game next week before the bye. But you got to get to 4-4 first. It's going to be fun to be there and cover it. You won't be there. You're going to be in Canada, but you'll be watching.
That is where I live. From Cincinnati, for all of you that are learning this for the first time. Let's wrap up there, James. We'll be back with you after the game, after the Bengals handle, hopefully, the New York Jets at home. Ring of Honor game for the Bengals. Until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.